Hello, Snow. This is devlog 2 of the Papyrus 3D interactive fiction engine template devlog series. So, I actually had a bit of a breakthrough last night, and I've now basically implemented in a basic form a map editor, basically. So I'll talk about how I did that, and yeah, it will need a lot of perfecting still, but basically I've got a basic form of a map editor in with the ability to create different rooms and add textures, though at the minute it just adds a generic texture to each model, and it needs a lot of refinement in that. This is how it would look now, and I've got all the other functionality in there still, like the scrolling through the interactions. Still got this thing with him clipping, I need to sort that out, but I've more been focusing on the harder things, to be honest, the harder questions of. But I'm glad I got this working. Anyway, and I'll talk a little bit about how I got it working. Before I actually show it the code and that, I think this code was based off this GitHub repository which I saw from slightly offbeat. So I'll just say that as a up front. It was basically in for the I copied part of this code to get this to work for the map editor. And it is like a sort of method that the guy used. I'll just show it actually. So slightly offbeat used. So it's basically creating an array, and then you've got different numbers which represent different types of geometry you want to. My example is slightly different. I did obviously modify it. It's not exactly the same scenario, but basically just use this. Yeah. So you've got it's a for loop within a for loop for the height, and then a for loop for the width, which makes complete sense. Like, I've seen this done in 2D actually before, but looking at this example helped to it just helped me to sort of go through it. So this is very useful actually, finding this repository. So obviously you've got if statements for each different individual point in here. So for example, we've got one is the normal wall. It's going to create a wall there. Yada yada yada. You're going to sort of set the player position here as well. So I'll just show my version of that. So I created it as a function. Let's just go here, and I'm still working on it a bit, but come on. What? Sorry. Oh right. What? I never knew they did that. That's weird. I just realised you can get something with WebStorm. Sorry. Okay, that's the HTML. That's the HTML. I'll go off that. Not what I want. There we go. That's it. Create rooms. So yeah, I have this. So I made it into a function. Obviously, I'm loading in the map source. Map source is a reference to that is basically I'll load in each map as a JSON file at the minute. As an object in JSON. So if I show that actually, just so it'll make more sense. I've not really changed that much really. Like the basic, obviously just the functionality. So yeah, you've just got. I'm gonna have. I think I'm gonna do it so that each individual scene, the user will just be able to have add as many of these as I want, obviously, but then just be able to just edit one map. I think it'd get confusing if it was one global maps object with all these things on. It would be too much to manage. So I figured that basically if we have scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, like for as many scenes as the user wants to add, or the creator, whatever the editor wants to add, that sort of makes sense in my head at the minute. And then you just add the map there. This does mean I'm probably going to make it have a few more potential dungeon crawler elements and RPG elements, but again, let's cover the main things before I get ahead of myself, I suppose. But yeah, like so, this is an app that I've edited myself. I do think one limitation of this way of doing things, though, is that basically the width and the height need to be the same. Now, this is not the worst thing in the world because, I mean, basically, you can still create a map. It just needs to be the same, and you can have lots of empty space. Like here, I've got like tons of empty space, and obviously, like it's a bit weird having to edit an array basically. So I mean, obviously, like it's a top-down view of what will be then a simulated 3D space, right? So this is, you can see it here if you've got all the ones there. This just basically makes a room there, and a room here. But it's a bit fiddly, right? Like here, I understand that. Like I made a mistake there. That needs to be like a 0 and a 0 because I want 3 different rooms. We want with a gap in between. But it's a way around the problem. You can also do it here as well. And it does give you basically a basic map editor of sorts. Now I think potentially if I want to make this a lot more user friendly, obviously, because I think a lot of people who are sort of techie will be all right with that. Like they'll be fine with just editing this, but it is a bit of a, probably what would be better would be to create an interface for this bit potentially further down the line, so that you can edit each map and then basically generate it on the fly, because then save it somewhere, because I mean, like I said, I don't think that many people would struggle with it who are somewhat interested in. Like, I don't think it wouldn't be that much of a struggle, but also it could be a bit of a limiting factor. But I'm not going to worry about that too much now. I'm going off on one basically. So just sort of like thinking aloud, I guess. So you've got the create. So we've got the data objects where all the data points for the 0s and the 1s, and this is an empty space. This is a wall. This is held. Just do some console log in there. Size and width of the walls. Size and height of the wall. Sorry. I append it all to an element called room, which I think makes sense. And then I create a floor and a ceiling, which is a standard. That's not actually in the original version. I've just created that myself. And then I made I'm still working this out. Like I just made worked out the area, and then timesing it by 2 to make sure it's bigger. But like I might not do that. I don't know. That's just something I was doing before. Messing around with. So anyway, so we've got the room creation here. So yeah, you've got the for loop, which loops over the height, which is 35, and the width, which is 35 in the map I've just created. So it'll be like 35 times for 35. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, for the amount of times basically it's going down like this. So the height is this bit, right? 35 down, and it just goes loops across, down one again, 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 loops across. So it goes through. It's pretty easy, really. It's just basically going through a for loop of the height, like I said, and then the width. It goes. So if it meets the 0, it'll go. There's nothing there. 1, it'll generate a wall, because there's a load of if statements below. So for example, it's actually pretty. It's actually pretty simple, really. It's basically just. And yeah, like I have like a little bit of. Like when I was creating like 2D maps, this is one of the common methods of doing it as well. And it's actually, when you really think about it, it's surprisingly intuitive, really. And because before, like I was trying out, I was trying something else out, but I was trying A-frame room component, which is a component you've used before, but I was just struggling to understand how would I actually get it so that people could customize their maps without having to add tons of markup, basically. But this is, like I said, like a fairly simple solution for that problem. So yeah, that seems to work, and I just call that function. I saw the create rooms function. What do I call it? I call it here. I do call it twice actually. Oh yeah, I don't need to call it there. I need to delete that actually. That's sort of dead code at the minute. It's not really being used, but it will be soon because I'm using it for the characters. But I need to take it off because it's already been called. Yeah. So I guess that's that for now. I just thought I'd update on that and show where it's up to. There's quite a nice little. Come on. Nice little bit of progress, and nice. It's good that I can create all these different sorts of maps. Everything else seems to work fine as well, like the looping through the dialogue. And if I quickly put on, I'll just walk you around the map maybe. Obviously I want to get rid of that, that's a bit silly. Let's add the WSAD controls on the player again. Oh, it's just WSAD control, isn't it? Should work. I've got the extras on there. WSAD control. And I'll just wander around it just to show. There you go. Hey! Maybe it'd be better like this, but then the only thing is then the physics stuff is annoying. It's like, so I can walk through walls. It's a bit odd actually. Woo! Anyway, I'm just doing this to demonstrate that so obviously it's 3 separate rooms, it's just that map I created before. One here. I missed it out there, but you know. I'm probably going to have like a preview mode basically, so that because the idea I had before was that basically the player, say, you know, like say for example we're in scene 1, change position, scene 2, no, not scene 2 but position 3 in the map, and then you can just do that, I think. And I could even, what I could potentially do is make it so on the map editor you can add these like position nodes, if you will, or position markers. This is something I'm just going to experiment next as well with the characters. So it might mean that I have to support a generic amount of characters, right? So I might say, you know, you can have a max amount of characters of 6. We could also do things like add enemy references, and then you just in that loop again, just create the reference to that specific character, which might be quite cool. I was thinking what I'm going to get onto soon is actually creating the example game. I think that will be very important because I'm going to have to create an example, like probably like dungeon crawler thing. Maybe you fight goblins or something, or maybe you have to interact with a magic D&D sort of scenario, which will be used as a sort of example project for as a starter point for people to actually use this thing. But it's coming along really nicely actually. I'm quite happy with how fast this has progressed. The fact that there's a map editor that, I mean, yeah, I know it's not elegant, I know it's not incredible, but I mean it works, which is quite nice. Obviously you can walk through the walls like I said, but it's not really gonna be, it's not a first person game. Obviously, like, somebody could take this code, and it is public, by the way, it's just public, so you can either do a pull request or whatever if you want to help make it better, basically. But just obviously, I'll have to check it. But you could also probably, if you wanted to create a variation of it that had physics and it was an FPS thing, you could do that as well. I might even do that as well. I'm going to maybe make it another mode, but it's not the priority right now. Priority is getting the main all the data loaded, all the functionality working, all the things like this map editor more finalized, and then just get everything all gelled together and do a cleanup probably soon as well, because there's some bits of redundancy in the code now, which is inevitable, of course, but I need to just tighten a few things up, clean up here and there, and then anyway, I'll leave it there. It's quite long already, so